Welcome to Dance Mogul TV. We are live on behalf of all dancers all over the world. I would like to congratulate Thelma and all of the other Soul Train dancers for their contribution to the arts and street dance culture. Welcome to our show.
It's a pleasure to meet you.
Can you introduce yourself to our audience, please?
My name is Thelma Davis Martin, my married name, and I am one of the original Soul Train dancers from the 1970s. At this point in my life, I am a librarian. I work with children, and I'm pretty much a community activist. I'm involved in many things in the community, and I'm always giving back. I'm always giving back.
Okay, that's great. Thanks for that. We're going to go back in time. Can you tell us what year you were dancing on Soul Train?
Well, I started dancing on Soul Train in 1971 when it first came here from Chicago. They were passing out flyers and going to the different high schools, recruiting dancers. And then from there, we would go to the different parks, and I think I auditioned at Dinker Park. And you had to audition to get on the show. You couldn't just know someone. You had to be able to dance. And so we auditioned, and then it was history. And we started, I came in, I think, the actual third taping.
Okay.
The third taping.
Excuse me, we're going to go back a little bit before that audition. Were you just the type of individual that would dance around the house? How did you become familiar with dance?
I started dancing around 4 years old. I was taking dance classes. My mother had me in ballet. I was doing jazz classes, modern classes. But I was living in a residential area in the valley. I was, and it's of course much quieter than Los Angeles. Much more closed community. So I was performing there, doing local shows and things like that when I got to be around 7, 8. And then by the time I turned around 15, 16, I decided that I needed to be out of the valley. I needed to be where dance was. So I dropped the ballet. And I didn't so much drop the jazz dance. I continued to study jazz and modern, but the ballet was just too restrictive for me.
Okay.
So I started street dancing, and I started using the technique that I picked up in dance classes on the streets. Street dancing, meaning house parties and around the house pretty much too.
Okay, so you from that point on into you went on as a teenager,
Mm-hmm.
and during high school you received a flyer that Soul Train was having auditions.
Right. Well, when I was in high school, there was a dance group, an African dance group. That's all it was called, the African dance group. And we were at Manual Arts High School then. And so I was one of the lead dancers, and we were doing, my brother was playing the congas, and we didn't really even know African dance like that. We just were out there doing it and doing whatever moves we thought were very ethnic and African. And so when they started passing out the flyers at the school, a lot of people were apprehensive. It was like, no one had ever heard of black people on TV. Because the flyers that went out actually said, we're looking for teenage dancers for a new television show, called Soul Train. The flyers actually had everything right on there.
So before that, there was no black television shows that was showing black people or African American people dancing on television that you could remember?
No. I mean, there was Bandstand, and every once in a while you would see a flick of color go across Bandstand, and they never really focused on the black dancers. And no, I don't remember ever. I don't remember ever seeing too many black people on TV.
So you saw the flyer in school. Did you bring it home, talk to your parents about it? How did that make you feel when you saw this new opportunity for the first time? Because that's exactly what it was. It was a new opportunity that was never tested before and it had never existed. Were you apprehensive or were you excited?
I was excited because I've always been, very focused on Black history and us as a people. So when it came about, I was promoting it. I was, saying, yeah, this is what we need to be doing. We need to be seeing ourselves. We need to see a reflection of ourselves.
As a teenager, you felt this way?
Oh yeah. Well, let me give you a little bit more history. My father, who was the first Black man on the fire department, who was an activist. My mother was a community activist. My mother's father was the first Black billiard champion in LA. So we have a lot of activism in our family. And we have a lot of first in our family. So for me, I was that other first.
Okay.
So for me, I always look at us as a people first, before anything. It's us as a people. So yes, I was excited, and but I didn't tell my father about it because I was studying with him at the time, and he was not very keen on the dance thing. Initially when I first started dancing, he was willing to support my dance, but I had to add another facet to it. I needed to be trained in some other worldly field, such as secretarial, or I needed to get my educational background first.
And I'm glad you brought that up because that was my next question. How was education viewed in your home?
I don't even know how to say it. It's without it, we couldn't function. On many different facets. Structured school education was important. Learning discipline was important because my father was a Navy man, then he was a fireman. So discipline was very important to him. I can remember him going to the quarry and buying a shipload of rocks. And he would make me and my brothers and sisters just go outside and move them from one side of the yard to the other, just because we needed to know how to do that.
As far as take instructions and being able to start a task and complete the task, and also understand the discipline involved in being able to respond and do what you're being told to do when you're told to do it.
And doing the task as a team.
Okay.
So because it was me, myself, and my little sister, and then I had 3 brothers. So it was teaching us teamwork. It was teaching us, discipline, following instructions, all of those things. That's the structure that we came under.
So basically, you had a strong family support structure, and education was at the top of the list as far as it went in your household. But at the same time, you also had a passion for the arts, for dance, and that was something you enjoyed doing.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I couldn't have said it any better.
And so you got the flyer and you were able to make your way over to the audition?
Yes. Matter of fact, where I was living was only 3 blocks from the park. So we pretty much just walked over there. I didn't tell my father at that time that what we're doing. We were in the 70s. There was a great trust factor with children, I think, more so than there is nowadays. If we said to our parents, we were going over to the park, there wasn't a lot of apprehension about, I have to be worried because the children are going over to the park and maybe somebody will get shot. It was a much kinder, gentler time. And it was right at the beginning of the, Say It Loud, I'm Black and I'm Proud, the Black exploitation films, and just Black people being more sort of neighborly and protecting each other. Not so much as the 50s and in that, but it was a different sort of a feel. So, we were just going over to parks. I went to the park. We auditioned, and I was disqualified on the first audition.
Before you tell me about the audition, I meant to get this question in there. When you saw the flyer and you saw the words Soul Train, what did that mean? Did that translate to you in any way? What did that mean to you?
Well, it definitely let me know that it was going to be something ethnic. That it was going to be about black people. Someone asked me the other day, and I'm going to this because a person of another color asked me what soul meant to me, and I told her that each individual is responsible for their own soul and what it means to them. Each nationality, all people have soul, but when I saw it in reference to a dance program, I immediately thought that it was about something black.
Okay.
So.
Okay, all right, that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so you went, you auditioned, and you didn't know what to expect.
No.
Because did they list on the flyer that you need to do this type of dance style?
Mm-mm.
And do you remember what types of dance was out at the time? Was it the bump? Was it the funky chicken? Do you remember?
Well, it was all of the the Witch Away, the bump, the funky chicken, the my partner and I came up with one dance, but at that time, we would just make up stuff.
Okay.
I mean, we would like, oh man, let's call this the scrunch.
So you basically went and freestyled.
Yes.
And they told you did not make. Did you go by yourself or you went with a group of your friends?
Well, I tell you, I didn't make the audition initially because there were rules and regulations to the auditions.
Okay.
And initially, you and your partner needed to be probably attending the same school. You needed to be, there was just there was criteria, guidelines. And so when they found out that I was at a different high school than my partner, they disqualified me.
Okay.
But the team coordinator, Pam Brown, after everything was over, they said you didn't make it because of this. So she called me later on at the house and she said, we can't let that go. Wow. She said, so she gave me a personal invitation to come back because we were devastated. I mean, because we were throwing down, and but it was intimidating. The audition was intimidating. I'm telling you.
Do you remember what song you danced to?
I sure don't. I don't think it was a song. They didn't have us dancing to songs. They were using whatever the theme song was that Don was using in Chicago.
Okay.
So it wasn't a song. It was whatever that theme was.
Okay.
And but I think it was a James Brown. Now that I remember it, I'm gonna go back. It was James Brown. Which one was it? It was a James Brown song. I know for sure it was a James Brown song that they were using that day.
It'd be funny if it was the Big Payback.
That would be, because it was the Big Payback. But it was interesting for me. It was intimidating. It was exhilarating. Watching the other dancers, because I felt that I couldn't compare. I mean, I saw guys flipping and girls splitting, and I saw some stuff going on. I was like, oh man, should I even be here? But I kept moving. I used to do lifts, and because I was very, very tiny at the time. I was maybe a size 3. And, guys would lift me and throw me and slide me, and I would just be like, yeah, I'll go where you want me, So we would do that. But I saw some stuff at that audition. I didn't think I was going to get accepted, but I have a different style. My style is very, what would I call myself? Sensual. Slow. Here comes my daughter. She's coming.
It's okay.
So, she's a dancer now. She's out of New York now. But I think I was just more maybe trained.
Okay.
I should say that. Trained.
Okay. So you got your call back,
Mm-hmm.
and now you're starting to feel good about yourself because you're starting to feel that you're going to have a real opportunity to be on this TV show.
Right.
And so now, did you share it with your parents?
I think I maybe didn't share it initially.
Okay.
At the time, my father and mother were divorced. So at that time, my mother was living in the valley, and my father was living in Los Angeles. And I moved to Los Angeles because I wanted to get out of the valley.
Okay.
But my father was still a strict disciplinarian, and for him, it, that wouldn't have been something that he would have liked to see me do.
Yes.
So I went to the taping, unbeknownst to him, and I think I may have danced. I may have taped like 3 or 4 shows before he even knew that I was on Soul Train.
So what did that experience feel like? Did you feel at that time that this was about fun, or was, you know what? This can get me into show business.
No, I never thought about it getting me into show business. First off, when you got there to the tapings, it was a long, arduous day. They were taping 4 shows in a weekend. So you would be there Saturday from 10 o'clock in the morning to God knows when. And then you would turn right about on Sunday, and you would come back, and you would be there from 10 o'clock in the morning until 2, 3 o'clock at night. And it was hard work. And I didn't look at it so much as a break in to the business. I was looking at it more as a showcase for Black people to be on television.
Did you
to show
see
a side of us? I'm sorry, to show a
okay.
side of us that white America didn't even know.
Just like how you saw American Bandstand, where you were able to just see them enjoying themselves and moving and just dancing around, you thought that this would be an ideal opportunity for Black / African Americans now to be able to just express themselves freely on TV as well.
To be perfectly honest with you, it was all about the dance. When I first started dancing on the show, it was all about the dance. It was about, because that's what I loved, and it gave me an opportunity to hone my craft. We had a large dance floor, an unencumbered dance floor, and people were doing things that I wanted to learn. I was a trained dancer, and I wanted to be able to do the street dances better. I was trained, and then from there I went to African dance, and I missed that section, of the actual street dance, and how they were doing all the funky stuff and really just cutting up. And so for me, it was the camaraderie and the dance, and that's what it's about. I didn't realize the impact that we were having initially. I didn't realize it until we started doing the tours. We, of course, Afro Sheen, Johnson Products was the sponsor at that time. So they would pick dancers to go into the Woolworths and the Newberries and things where the product was actually placed. And they would have us do promotions. And they used the Soul Train dancers because, they were promoting the show. They were the backers. And we would go into places like Atlanta and Virginia, and places that weren't metropolises like Los Angeles and New York. And these kids were looking up to us like role models
Because of the television show?
just because they had seen us dancing on the show. So for me, always being a civic-minded, sort of moralistic person, my first thought when I started to realize the impact was, we need to be role models. We've got people looking at us And we need to not do things. We need to not do drugs. We need to not be sexually promiscuous. We need to be role models. And so from that point on, mostly all the Soul Train dancers that I know of during the 70s were very clean cut, educated individuals. And I mean, that's not to take anything away from the 80s and 90s, because we know what happened in the 80s and 90s. So, but it was just the attitude of presenting a wholesomeness to the world, and that's where we all sort of fell in that little groove.
How did that thought come to your mind? Was this something that Don or some of the other coordinators of Soul Train sat you guys down and talked to you about presenting yourself in a respectable way? How did you come to that realization?
Well, Pam Brown, who was the teen coordinator for the show, she was the one that pulled in all the dancers. When Don first came to Los Angeles looking for dancers, they went to Pam because she was the teen coordinator already at the different parks and recreation centers. So she was wholesome, and she was a role model herself. There were certain things that we could not do on the set. We could not chew gum. We could not wear revealing clothing. We could not conduct ourselves in an inappropriate manner. She had a set
no cursing,
no
drugs,
bad talk,
no alcohol,
none of that. I mean, and it was strictly enforced. I don't know if Don had anything to really do with that. I mean, I don't know what image he was looking for in terms of the dancers, because to be perfectly honest with you, Don wasn't interested in LA dancers. He was afraid of us. He said that we didn't have that sort of smooth Chicago feel, and really he was looking for that kind of flow. And when he saw the things that the teenagers were doing out here in LA, he was like, oh man, I don't know if this is gonna work, So it was a trial and error period for him as well, because he wasn't looking for that. He wasn't looking for what LA gave him. Yes. And LA went wild, we were like, but we were already wild. We were already like Mavericks, where we were last night. Man, we cut our teeth at Mavericks.
As teenagers?
Oh man, that little area that you see downstairs at the bottom where the dance floor, it looks exactly like it did when we were teenagers, because of course Mavericks has been designated as an historical landmark.
Oh, is it?
Oh yes. That area and the area that you were actually in doing the tapings and the interviews, as you can see, it was the broken glass. All that room is exactly the same. It's exactly how it was when I was 17.
Okay.
But that little bar that you saw that encircled the dance floor, we danced on that.
Wow.
We danced on that. Those stairs going up to where we were, we did things. We flipped off of those. Mavericks, there was Summit on the Hill. There were a lot of different clubs in the city, and that's when LA had a nightlife. LA doesn't really have a nightlife like it used to. Okay. There were a lot more places for young teenagers to go and party, and that is sort of gone to the wayside.
Yes, things have changed a lot.
Yes.
How many years were you on Soul Train?
I danced from 71 all the way up until about 82.
Wow.
Right. I was one of the original dancers. I was the longest dancing.
Really?
Yes.
That's a long run. So you're dancing on Soul Train, obviously, but also time is going on, and at some point your dad, I'm sure, knows, and you also know that you have to do something with your future.
Exactly.
You have to figure out what you want to be when you so-called grow up. Mm-hmm. And at some point you decided, okay, I'm going to do this, but yet you still were dancing on Soul Train. Tell us about that.
I was working. I went to, I didn't go through college, and get a degree, but I did vocational schools. And I did secretarial science. I did legal secretary. I stayed in that sort of administrative assistant sort of vein. And I was working. I've worked actually since I was 16.
Okay.
When my father and mother first got divorced, my mother was unaware of how to do anything. So she was having difficulty trying to cover the bills and things like that. So I went out and got a job. I started working at the employment office as a keyboard operator. I mean, a PBX operator, where they take the calls in. And I worked there. I've been employed with the Southern California Gas Company. I've worked for the MTA. I've worked for private industry. So I've also had a couple of my own businesses, entrepreneurial businesses that I've started. And now I'm working for the Los Angeles Unified School District as a librarian. I've been there for 20 years. But work ethic is very important in my family.
How do you feel that the arts played a role in helping to develop your character as far as working with other people, being able to take instructions, work together as a group, being able to understand a work code of ethic that you had to follow in order to be on Soul Train? How do you feel that that helped to prepare your mind for the professional world?
You know what? First, let me say that I think it's devastating that they pulled arts out of the schools, because for me, the combination of everything is what builds character and helps people to become whoever they're going to become. You need the balance. You need the yin and the yang. You can't just have constant scholastic input. You got it. It's a learning experience.
Yes, we are artistic by nature.
Exactly.
And to exclude that is to exclude who we are, a part of us.
And it's to exclude not just us, people, period.
Yes.
The human race. I mean, everyone has artistic inclinations. The drum, whatever it is, painting, whatever it is, the arts are the balance.
Yes.
The arts are the balance, and it's devastating to me. I've seen, working with children over the last 20 years, I have seen the toll that it has played, pulling that away from them. I mean, children are just, slovenly and
a lot more scattered and unstructured. You're absolutely right about that.
Exactly.
So the discipline and the structure that you got from your household,
Right.
from your family, helped, along with your exposure to Soul Train at a young age, as far as the arts, the balance of the two,
Right.
helped you to transition into adulthood.
Right, and also, if you have that structure and that discipline, the thing is that we would take long hours, and it was you needed to be disciplined and structured even for that part of it, the tapings, because while you're taping and while you're doing that artistic part of it, it's still work.
Yes.
It's still work, and the discipline that you needed to stand up on your feet, and even though your feet were hurting, and act like they weren't hurting, and the discipline to know when to not ham into the camera, or it's all part of building the character of the show. Because you can look at some of the early tapings, and you can see in the very beginning in the 70s, it wasn't the hamminess.
Yes.
So much. It grew into jumping in front of the camera and doing certain things, and it evolved, and that's a good thing that it evolved, because everything needs to grow and become it. But the children from the 70s were there really showing off what they